up next, and this kind of dovetails right into membership. And it is about doing things for your club and getting your club goals lined up. But does your club have a plan? Does it have a strategic plan? And it's something that you can consider for yourself and how to make your club more effective. So, joining us tonight from the Amherst South Rotary Club is Matt Smith, and Matt has joined us before to talk about strategic planning. Matt, are you ready to roll up here?
Let's do this, Scott. We'll see. As ready as it's going to be.
You're more ready than for curling, I bet, huh, Matt?
No, I'm actually looking forward to the curling tomorrow night. That's going to be awesome.
Well, thanks for joining us, Matt.
Let's see. Does that work? Are we seeing a screen? I hope.
We got you, Matt. Go ahead.
We got you. All right. Cool. So within this world, right? So thinking about this and kind of piggybacking off of what Michelle was saying, and just kind of in our goal to be a vibrant club, right? And thinking about that, and kind of there's a million things that we could potentially possibly be doing. And I think the one thing that I kind of want to convey tonight is a plan can be as small as for a specific project or task. It can be as grand as a 10-year vision. But within each one of those things, the common thing is that if you don't know where you're going, you're going to have a really, really hard time getting there. So, and that's the message that I want to convey in this, which is the vision is simply starting with the end in mind. So, and if there's any fans of Stephen Covey out there, right, kind of 7 habits, and habit number 2 was begin with the end in mind. Habit number 1 was be proactive. And that's kind of what this whole idea is. Start with the end in mind and let's start doing stuff. So as you'll see, I mean, many of the Rotary International pieces say we are people of action. So it's not just a vision. It's not just, but ultimately you ultimately have to do something with this vision. So multiple different steps. Let's see if this clicks. Oops. So Scott asked me kind of the question of, or kind of, does our club need a vision? And I guess, first of all, thinking about that and kind of go, well, let's start with what the definition is. And a really good one is a picture of what success looks like to you in the future, and trying to make a portrait wrapped around that. Make it vivid. Make it not just I want to increase membership by 2%. It's, what does that feel like? What does a vibrant club feel like? The more that you can kind of put in this picture, the more it's going to draw people in, the more it's going to be inspiring, the more it's going to add energy. And that's kind of the superpower of this thing. And again, even if you take it down to its smallest level, which is something that our committee is kind of working with different clubs now to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But it's not just big strategic plans. It's, how do I get this little, the little mechanism or the little engine that could kind of mechanism going within the club to do things better. So it also fits into Imagine Rotary very well, because that's exactly what we're speaking of here, which is the vision is exactly that. Close your eyes, imagine Rotary. What can it be? What does it look like to you? So that might lead a little bit here. So a vision is a North Star, or it's kind of a compass. Without a vision, where are we going? And a question that I guess I'd like to ask is, if you were going to start a road trip, would you start that without knowing where you were going to go? We do it every day, though, within all the things that we work on. We choose, right, within our club, we chose 5 things that we wanted to do this year. Were they connected with anything in particular? Did they have a set goal in mind? Were they trying to advance us in any one particular direction? There's some fantastic stuff. I'm not sure if anybody's a Zingerman's Deli fan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but they run a fantastic deli and community of businesses. And some of the writings of the founder are just fantastic. And he speaks more elegantly about visions and what they do, what they've done for Zingerman's than anybody else I've come across. Their secret number 1 to doing good business is an inspiring, strategically sound vision leads the way to greatness, particularly if you write it down. He's got about 40 secrets, but that's number one. Somewhere in there also kind of as a quote, thinking about this, but prime organizations, or think about great organizations, know what they're doing, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. I already mentioned the Covey thing. And then this last piece is kind of interesting. Kepler knew what we habitually forget, that the locus of possibility expands when the unimaginable is imagined and then made real through systematic effort. Said another way, the Cheshire Cat and Alice, where should I go, Mr. Cat? Well, if you don't know where you're going or where you want to go, then I guess any road will serve you. So, and that's, I guess, really what we want to speak to in this idea of vision is an endpoint. The more vivid you can make it, the more powerful it's going to be toward getting the results that you want. So rather than, kind of this wavy thing, it helps straighten out the line, right? Or maybe you kind of get something like this. This is courtesy of Ann Birmingham and some of our presentations that we give. But the person kind of clawing out of the jail, it looks like he's doing really good until he runs into the next obstacle. Rotary makes it a little easier for us. There's a big vision statement. So together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe and in our communities and in ourselves, which is fantastic. It's an amazing statement. But I think as president-elect and kind of as all of us as Rotarians have to kind of take this statement, I guess, and kind of ask the question, what does that mean to us? And then how are we going to put that into action? And to what end? What change are we trying to make? So, and that's really where the big challenge is, and where some things we're not particularly good at this. We are not born to do this. This is like an exercise. In a lot of ways, it's like going to the gym for the first time and you're training to run a marathon. The first time you're not going to run 26 miles. But the first time, if you go and you run for, 50 yards or 50 meters, hey, you were at the gym, you actually made an effort. The next time you might get 75. The next time you might get 100. This kind of exercise happens, I think, in much the same way, but within a technique, and also better if you have a coach or somebody as a mentor who's helping you through the process. So, and speaking to this, it's, if you ask the question, we envision this thing to look like at some point in time in the future. And when we're there, it's going to look like this, it's going to feel like this. And then in the community, we're going to be known for doing this. Starts framing things up a little bit. So we all want to be effective. We all want vibrant clubs. Many of our journeys look like the sawtooth diagram. So while we put effort into things, it improves a little bit. We turn to focus on something else, kind of drops back to where we started or maybe went down a little bit. So, and the whole goal is to ultimately keep our curve going up and accelerate. So we really want to be effective. And busy is not the same as being effective, but we often confuse the two. So some different questions just to kind of chew on. I'll put this presentation somewhere. I'll send it to Scott or however we want to share this, but just kind of some focusing questions, just kind of, what are we focusing on and what's our objective, and why is that our objective? And just some kind of interesting things to chew on as we think about the need again for a vision within our club or for our next project. These things are simple, but they're not easy. And I think within that, and then there's also this big thing that kind of works against us, and particularly to the big club visions. I'm not talking about the little individual project visions, but if you were going to set this up in kind of the traditional way of, I want to set a 3 to 5 year strategic plan up. Well, as club president, you only have 1 year of that slice. So what does that look like for your club going forward? How do you ultimately get that going? One of the things, kind of the tricks that we've learned is that it's kind of good to push that off into committee, to have a champion within your club that's not the president or the president-elect, because that leads to the continuity. that can happen and kind of take this thing. Now, once you have it in place for your club, it's really cool, because now as incoming president-elect, you kind of go, club really wants to go here. I'm just continuing what's already been started and adding these couple of new twists. So there's a little bit of, so it's a little bit tricky in setting that up for the first time. The other little bit I would venture is that the club really has to want to do this. This isn't just something that's easy that you do one time. If you do it one time and you don't really want it and you don't follow it up, you put a whole bunch of effort in, and then it's that sawtooth diagram. It just kind of stops. Out in the big world, there's a whole bunch of things that are pushing on us that are probably good, pretty good reasons for us to make changes within our club. Certainly COVID was one of these things, right? And thinking about that forces causing us to change, COVID, and how that affected our clubs of a couple of years ago. And then, you know, if we did kind of have that idea of, we really want to be here in 3 to 5 years' time, how would that have impacted kind of some of the things that we were doing? Shown another way, in just about everything we're starting, we want to get to a destination. In between those two, there's going to be a whole bunch of obstacles, and we'll call that distance between A and B in the gap. So, and if we look at it this way, it's a get there action plan that we're putting together. So we're answering a whole bunch of questions based on the final destination, our starting point, and what expected obstacles we're going to have to overcome. This is something that we've put in at work this year, and it's kind of elegant in its simplicity, I think. But the idea here is that we want to build a daily routine of improvement, and really a vision ends up being the core #1 piece of this. And so starting with the end in mind, so over here, the big vision, we're ultimately going to go back to the step #2 to determine really kind of succinctly where we're at. And then this is a big leap. That's a really big step. So we're going to try to envision this next target condition, or kind of this stretch goal of where we ultimately want to be. And then within this world in here, we're going to do a whole bunch of experimenting, systematic experimenting to work through our obstacles. So, and I think that's, you know, it's an important thing. No matter if you're working on a specific project, or if we've got this bigger aspiration of we ultimately want to put in this 3 to 5 year strategic plan. This is kind of the little mechanism. This is the little engine that could. Here's a slide of some best practices, and sorry, there's too many on this slide, but kind of #1 here. So senior leadership commitment for the next 3+ years. And now in building this, if you don't have that, what I would strongly suggest is let's just do a visioning exercise for one next project that you're going to work on, or one aspect of one next project that you're going to work on, and start small. But start by doing something. So, and just kind of thinking about that. So, and we mentioned this, so having a project champion that's not the club president is ideal. If we don't have a project champion, and we don't have this, then again, club president stuff, totally fine. We just kind of want to suck things back into things that can happen on a shorter cadence. This idea of who are we serving? So actually getting out into the community to kind of go, hey, what's our big problem and how does Rotary help that? Can be tremendously unifying. And one other one that I'll leave you with today is kind of this idea of ABZ. And ABZ is, and old school is, I have to have the strategic plan that maps out the 100 steps to get me from A to Z. But in reality, that's impossible to know. There's too many forces that are constantly changing our plan. And usually when we get 3 steps in, we find out that the whole plan isn't going to work. So we have to scrub the thing and redo it anyway. So really what you're thinking about is, if I know where I'm going and I know where I'm starting, the really important thing is this next box that I want to achieve. And then once you achieve that, that becomes your new A, and you pick your new B, and you're advancing kind of systemically toward your goal. This also fits into kind of this other tool that we use, which is, again, thinking about a specific project, but it's a project storyboard, sometimes referred to as an A3, just because that's the size of the paper it is. But if you can write this stuff down and if you can share it, and everybody in your club is kind of working off the same stuff and helping to inform this, you'll see many of the same boxes in here. So the problem we're trying to solve is this, our desired future state, whoops, is this, which is the vision. And then our current state is here. And then off of those things, now we're going and choosing our execution plan and our next steps. This is an example of the Dundas Sunrise Club. I'm not sure why my screen keeps blanking out. But they've kind of been leaders in this world for quite a long time, at least within our district, in regards to every member carries around a really nice kind of 3x5 fold out that has a really succinct strategic plan, kind of focused on all of the areas within Rotary that we believe to be important, with very specific action items that are targeted over 3 years. So their 1, 2, and 3 represent year 1, year 2, and year 3. And every third year, they're redoing their plan. So just some examples and hopefully a little bit of motivation. And so questions?
Matt, I think one question people might want to know is, are you available to help in the visioning process with the club?
Absolutely. So it's Matt Smith and Ann Birmingham and friends. So, and the visioning process has gotten really easy. Old one used to be, we're going to set up this long, elaborate 2 or 3 hour dinner meeting and walk away with lots and lots of big sticky pads with all kinds of dot voting and stuff on it. And over the course of COVID, what's happened is everything shrunk into like 15-minute modules. So, and it's particularly customized to your club. So we can do things, again, as small as a task-based visioning exercise to get you started, or full-blown strategic plan that happens over a series of steps.
Any questions for Matt? You just do this so I can see everybody's hands. Everybody's hands all at once?
I'm looking at a chat from Ruth, just trying to find out what you mean, Ruth, by that.
Yeah, it's just it occurred to me that we haven't done any strategic planning. I haven't really canvassed the club for several years. So I said, I don't want to do, it's just exactly what Matt's talking about. I don't want to do a strategic plan because by the time I get one going, I won't be president anymore. So we have the president-elect, and then the vice president is going to be is in the succession. So as president-elect, I know vice president, and now I know who will be vice president in the future years. So the three of us are going to start the process of doing a strategic plan, so that it will be a 3-year plan that the upcoming presidents can get behind and be fully informed about as they come into office.
It's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ruth.
Anybody else? Questions to Matt?
There's a Russell down there with a hand up. Hey, Russell.
Russell?
Sorry, just unmuting and that.
There you go.
The last one you showed, Matt, was my club, the Dundas Valley Sunrise.
Yeah.
And as you saw that document there, the fact that we've got years 1, 2, and 3, it makes it very easy. I mean, once you get into the process, is you just move on from year to year. So you only have to fill in 1 year if you're ahead of the process. So in other words, I've already got the next 2 years ahead of me. And now what we're doing is planning 3 years out for the vice president, to do. So once you start the process fully, then it becomes that much easier just to stay on top of it.
Thank you, Russell.
I'd just like to add something to that. What you're really doing is developing steps in order to be able to accomplish those long-term strategic goals. And don't leave the session. I'll explain what I'm saying later.
Oh, it sounds like a dovetail, Dave. Sounds like a dovetail.
Yeah.
Right, it is. Well, that's the vision to action piece, Dave. That's the where it was. I mean, so a couple of years back, it was literally just visioning, or it was futuring, depending on which side of the border you were on. And really, that's where the committee would leave the club, which, right, here you go. We've given you all the information that you need. Now go take it and run with it. And that's really the hard part. The hard part is, right, is to, now that you have some little bit of information, it's what's my little mechanism. It's that taking that first step, and then, right, getting comfortable with the idea of experimenting. Many of the things that you're going to try in an experiment are not going to work. But that's a really good outcome, because out of that thing that didn't go the way we expected, that's really where we learn.
Hey, Matt, this is Dan Smith. I was just wondering if you could put your contact info in the chat. So
Sure.
we could pick it up there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, Matt, thank you so very much. That was some great information there. And, again, as you're becoming into a leadership position in your club, one of the things you want to be able to do is to give your club some direction. And the visioning process is a way of not only giving your club direction for your year, but also getting the club culture set in place for a couple of years going forward. So great tool, makes the continuity of your club much stronger, and it makes it easier for those people coming in after you. And then you know what you're going to do already ahead of time. So Matt, thanks so very much for your information. I'm sure a lot of people will take you up on it. In the meantime, Matt, since we're on the same team tomorrow, start stretching and getting yourself ready.